welcome to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. Today's project, we've got a set of coffee table and two end tables that are from the Lane Perception collection, probably from the early 1960s. They need a lot of work. I thought you'd want to come along and watch how we restore this American-made mid-century furniture. Here we go. And let's go over these pieces one at a time. Here's the first of the end tables. You can see the top is completely shot. The finish is completely gone. And if I drop you down here, you can see the finish is completely gone on the shelf. And right here we have some animal chews. I guess it was a puppy or something got a hold of this and chewed part of this off. What is fortunate is that this is a kind of a signature design feature of Lane Perception, which is this grid, and that's in really good shape. We're just going to tape over that and protect it, but we're very fortunate that's in good shape. So we've got really a complete refinish job here, plus repair on this drawer pull, and then once we get this drawer case off, we'll check to see if the legs are loose or need any additional work. Here's our second end table. The top is in similar shape as the first. It has a dark water ring and a dark stain that we'll try to get out. The shelf of the drawer is not in as bad condition. Fortunately, this signature design element is in great shape here as well. But the animal chews to this drawer are much worse than the other one. We have this damage here, and we also have a lot of missing material underneath. We're going to have to recreate this curve as well, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge. And here's the cocktail table. It is absolutely gorgeous. I just love these legs. This design element again is in great shape. We'll just protect it. The top is in dreadful condition. It needs a lot of work, and as do the legs and the tops of the drawers. Let me bring you in and show you the top. And I'm not 100% up on my definitions, but I think this may be classified as a cocktail table, as it's only 13 inches off the ground. My understanding is that cocktail tables were lower than the coffee tables. And underneath the coffee table we see the serial number 367270. If you read it backwards, 072763. July 27th, 1963 is your date of manufacture. Let's take a look at the joinery where the legs and the table come together. We have this piece here that's screwed in with two screws and then nailed in from here and here. So I'm not certain if we pull these screws out, if we'll be able to get this leg assembly off. It certainly would make it a little bit easier to refinish it with the leg assembly off. So we'll take a look at that, see if these legs will come off. I'm just not sure if they're mortised and glued in here, and if they are, it's just not worth risking damaging this table to get these legs off. We can refinish it just the way they are. I removed these two screws here to see if this leg assembly would just simply lift off, and it is firmly glued into a recess, into a mortise that's been routed into this base. We know that it's chipboard underneath. It is absolutely not worth trying to blow this off of here to save ourselves 5 minutes in the refinishing process. I'm just going to reinstall those screws. We're going to leave these legs on. And this drawer casing is also held in with screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them. And we're going to leave this right where it is for just exactly the same reason. Because I have to strip these legs in place, and I'm going to do it with a liquid stripper. I didn't want stripper dripping on the underside of the table and leaving spots. The only other solution would be to strip the entire underside and the entire top side. That would be the easiest way for me to do it, but I don't think there's any reason to remove the original color that's on the underside. These undersides are really just colored and maybe get a light coat of sealer. There's really no finish on them. And I think that they look very age appropriate as they are, and I don't see a reason to just completely strip the underside of this table. So what we're going to try to do is, I've got it taped off. I'll very carefully strip these legs and then the edges up to where they are, and then that'll feather in. And I think that'll give us the best result. It's certainly not the best way to do it from a time and efficiency standpoint. I probably use $5 worth of painter's tape to get this all masked off. But for this job, I think it's the appropriate thing to do, and that's what I chose to do. Other guys would do it differently, other women would do it differently, and I understand that, but that's what I chose to do today. Got one of the end tables turned upside down, and my idea was to remove the drawer box from the legs. There are 4 screw holes, 2 in each leg, that go through the drawer box, through a block of wood, and into the leg assemblies. I've removed all of the screws on this side, and there is absolutely no movement whatsoever. It appears that these blocks are glued and possibly mortised in. Let me show you. So here we are at the front of the table. This here is the bottom of the drawer box. These are the 2 screws I removed. Those screws go through this block and into this leg. There is absolutely no movement of this block or either the leg or the drawer casing. And if you look right here, you can see how thin the veneer sheet is on this rail. And if this is glued in or mortised and glued, and we give it a whack with a hammer or pull it, we're going to tear this right off of here. So we're going to have to refinish this piece with these drawer boxes in place. Now, one other thing to notice in these screw holes here that hold the top of the drawer box on, these are mud wasp nests. It's not unusual to find these in furniture that's been stored in a garage or a barn, so I get those cleaned out. But yeah, we're going to have to refinish this exactly the way it's constructed, and that's going to present some challenges. If anybody's interested in this mud wasp thing, I guess it's an insect that they go in a hole, they put a dead insect in there, they lay their eggs, and then they seal it, and their larva then eats the dead insect, and then it goes something like that, I don't know. Anyways, to clean them out, just take a screwdriver, run it through the hole, break out the sealing material. Vacuum out the gross stuff, and you can just scrape the rest of it off, or it'll sand off when you're sanding, but that's it, it's no big deal. We've got one of the end tables flipped up. We've gotten all the wasp nests taken care of. I've taped off the insides of the underside so I don't get stripper on them. And what we're going to do is we're going to strip everything by hand. Drawer boxes, everything. It's going to be a challenging stripping job and a challenging refinishing job because I can't get this thing apart. I'm going to have to be top coating the top piece of this drawer case from underneath. We're going to have to be working on coloring these blocks by hand. So we're going to have a little bit of a challenge with this old girl, these old girls. But we'll get to it. The next step is to start the stripping. Okay, I'm going to start stripping. I'm going to show you just a little bit, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and get my mask on and some protective gear so I can get this done. But basically what I'm going to do is just apply liquid stripper to all of the finished parts of this table and remove the old finish. And I've got the table set up so I make the least amount of chance of dripping of this liquid stripper on anything that I don't want to have the finish damaged. Okay, that took the finish right off, and fortunately the color stayed right where it was. So that's a little bit of good news. Okay, I'm gonna put on all my protective gear and get this whole table stripped, all these tables stripped. I'll be here in a while. Good morning, welcome back. While you were gone, I got these tables all stripped off, and they're ready to move. We're ready to move forward with those now. But before we get started, I wanted to show off my new t-shirt. This is a gift from my friend George down in New Zealand. George is a antique restorer. He works out in New Zealand. He's also very talented, not only with antique restoration, but stained glass. And his work can be seen on a channel called The Flower Show Guy. And if you haven't watched George, I suggest you do. He makes his techniques extremely look extremely simple for the viewer, and it's a great place to learn some good stuff. So George, thanks for the t-shirt. I'm going to take it off before I ruin it, and now we're going to get to work on these tables. So stick with us, here we go. And here's the surface of the coffee table, and all of those dark marks are water problems. That right there is a water ring, and then something awful dripped here. I'm not even sure what that is. And then we'll move up to the first of the end tables, and it has watermark issues. You can see one here. So to any of you that have been following the channel, you can guess what the next step is. Let's break out some oxalic acid, see if we can lighten up these stains. And here we go again. Here's my oxalic acid. I buy it on Amazon. Just put enough of it in. Whoa! Don't do that. What a comedy show. Amateur hour here at Lost Mountain. All of you chemists and engineers out there who are precise people, I'm sorry. Couple of months of therapy and you'll be over what I just did. What a moron. Alright, well anyways, this stuff will go into solution. Whatever doesn't go into solution will settle on the bottom and unfortunately go to waste, but that's what happens when you're an idiot like me. Okay, moving forward, hopefully I won't destroy anything else. Let's put some oxalic on the tables. Now, after you've made a complete fool of yourself for the entire world YouTube audience, the oxalic, I just put it on with a foam brush. You can sand before you put this on to facilitate absorption. I wouldn't go any more coarse than say 120 grit, but in this instance we've got some repairs we're going to have to make to these tops. And I want to save every sanding I have because, as you know, this veneer is not very thick on this furniture, and we don't want to be sanding through it. So we're going to save our sandings for later. And we are getting this absorbed into the wood, so we're okay. I'm a little concerned about these two spots here. I have no idea what they are. And that's all there is to it. Let me get the other two and I'll bring you back. And here's what we're dealing with. We've got this edge chewed away, big bits of missing wood there, and a big hunk of missing wood there. What we're going to use is Mohawk's Epoxy Putty. This is an oak light walnut. I like to use a little bit lighter color, and I can color it to match later. So basically all you do is cut off a piece of this stuff and you mix it up in your fingers till it's a homogeneous color, and when it dries, it's not kidding, it gets very, very hard. It's a great product. So let's get started. Okay, that's as close in as I can get you. So here's our putty, and we're just going to mix it up until all the white is gone. Okay, I've got the putty the way I want it. I force it into the places where there's wood missing, so there's good contact, and I leave it a little bit proud for now. You'll see where I go with it from here. I took a training course with Mohawk up in Nashville about a year ago, maybe longer now, and one of the products that they showcased and taught us how to use was this epoxy putty. and they provided us with a piece of rather complicated molding that had been cut flush, and then our job was to rebuild it using nothing but this, and it was just amazing how strong this stuff was and how hard and tightly it bound even to straight edges like what we have here. And really all we're doing here is sculpting with this putty. If you wet your hands, I have a little spray bottle of water here. If you wet your hands, it gets less sticky and becomes a little bit more malleable. When this stuff hardens up, it's not kidding. So while you want to make sure you have enough putty to cover your damaged areas, anything that is not needed, try to get rid of it before it dries. And I've found that one of the best tools to use when you're working with this stuff is just your dampened fingers. I was restoring an antique display cabinet, one of those really nice curved glass things that people used to put their valuable artwork and stuff in, and there was carved acanthus leaves on this, and one or more of them had broken, and I was able to use this material to reproduce the missing acanthus leaf, and it was an excellent result. And the other tool I'm using here is just a thin putty knife. And as I'm working this, I'm just trying to replicate the curve on both sides. It looks like this goes in just a little bit here. Swings back out. I'm using my finger here on the back side, and I'm sorry if you guys can't see what I'm doing, but I'm basically damping my fingers, and I'm almost using my finger like sandpaper and just gently rubbing, and what it's doing is working any of the ridges in the putty out and flattening it against the existing wood. And we'll do that on this side too. Now this stuff is already starting to harden up, so we want to make sure it's smooth on the underside where people's fingers are going to go. And as it starts to harden, the manner in which you can maneuver it changes. Obviously it's not quite so fragile, so you can get a little bit more aggressive as you shape it. And it's getting pretty hard right now, but you can see there that I think we have a pretty good result so far. That little puppy can't beat us. Alright, cool. We'll let this harden up, and we'll take out some sandpaper, smooth it, and if there's any little places that need to be touched up, we'll mix up just a little bit more of this putty and touch it up. But right now I think we've got this pretty well licked. And now with some 120, very gently starting to sand and shape the last little bits of this, and the underside too. I tell you, I can recommend this product without reservation to anyone. It really does what it says it does. And as you're sanding your piece, low spots will show up dark, except this area here, that's filler I just put in. So what you can do, rather than sand all this flat and run the risk of losing your shape, this is just some water-based wood filler. This is Timbermade. I've showed it before. And just put some of this on here, and it's kind of like a final coat that'll bring up any of the little tiny low spots and save you having to sand down to those low spots, which can be problematic when you're dealing with a shaped piece like this, where you're going to wind up taking it out of its shape to get that low spot out. This is the product that I'm using. There we go. I hope this view can show you what we've accomplished. This is smooth as a baby's behind all the way around here. We've got our curve back. I'm real happy with this repair. Hey, you could see this really wasn't that hard, and if you have the right products, that Mohawk epoxy putty, and then I used some Timbermate, a couple of grits of sandpaper, and 20 or 30 minutes out of your day, you don't have to live with damage like this. It's very fixable. So I hope this helps somebody. Okay, here's the results of the oxalic acid treatment. We had real good results. I did do a second treatment on the coffee table, so it still has some oxalic on it. We'll take care of that a little bit later today. Right now I've got an appointment, so I gotta go, but when we come back we'll continue with these. I like my old man shirt, huh? Pretty stylish? I'm rocking it. We'll see when we get back. Well, good morning. We're back. The oxalic treatment's had a chance to dry. We had really good success with it. We do have these two unusual light stains on this coffee table that are going to vex us as we continue to move forward, but we'll take care of it. What I'd like to try to accomplish today is to go through all of the pieces and find and repair any scratches, deep scratches in the wood, and then once we have that complete, we'll sand everything, and if time allows, get the first coat of sealer on these pieces, and we can start coloring them tomorrow or the next day. So let me bring you in. I'll show you how we made out with the oxalic, and we'll get started with the scratch repair. And here's the coffee table. It's pretty well representative of how it came out on the other ones. Most of the stains came right out. We're in a position where we can refinish this with no problem. Here are these two light marks that I had talked about earlier. We identified these right off the bat as being problematic, but we should be able to color through them. And there is our repaired drawer handle and both of the tables. Okay, let's get started. It's always kind of a challenge to find these little dings and dents before the finish goes on. So what I do is I like to light it up from the side, and look what shows up right there is a big dent, and then we've got little chips all around it. So we want to get these filled because, yeah, I think you can see that now, because they're going to be problematic when it comes time to refinish this. So this is how we find these marks, by illuminating them from the side. And then as I go through the piece, if I'm not kind of fixing them as I find them, I just put a little piece of blue tape in the area that I need to come back to. Boy, there's an issue right there. Look at that scratch. There's a dent right there, but look at that scratch. This is the kind of damage that if you try to sand out, you're in a real good risk of going right through the veneer. And after just a few minutes with that light shining in at a raking angle, you can see all the little chips and dings we have. There's a lot of ways of filling chips and dings. This wood is bare now, so because it's bare, I'll probably just use that Timbermate wood filler. It's pretty quick, it sands off easy. You can also use that heated up epoxy, but more often than not I'll use that when I have finish on a piece. But this piece is going to do just fine with the Timbermate, so let's get started. Here's a dent right here. I've got this illuminated because without that light you can't even see it. So I'm just going to take a little of the Timbermate in walnut, because that's the color this is going to be colored at, and put it on. Timbermate can also be thinned out with water and used as a grain filler. And I'm not too worried about leaving excess on because it'll sand off. But that's the first step. So I'm going to go through and take care of all these little chips, and then when this dries and we sand it off, we'll see how it comes out. And here's this very long scratch from here to here. Sometimes when you're dealing with a real long scratch like this, you can consider using two different color fills just to kind of break up the line. But this is kind of on a grain line, and I think it's going to look just fine when it's sanded down. So we're just going to overfill it, and we'll sand it back after it dries. And believe me, it is really hard to find these things without lighting them up from the side, and when I light them up from the side I lose you. And one other thing, it's August 1st here in Georgia and it's pretty warm. I've got the AC running. I know that the mic picks it up kind of differentially and it makes it sort of loud, so I will do my best to control that when I can. And here's how the table looks with the Timbermate down on all the nicks that were just too deep to sand out. Over here where we had these problematic spots, I noted a lot of open grain. So what I did is I put some Timbermate on there to kind of close that grain up in anticipation of us later addressing the color issues. I used an oak colored Timbermate on the ash portion here, and then the walnut up here on the walnut. Here's that long scratch that we filled in, and most of this stuff will sand off when it comes time to sand. This is where the walnut meets the ash. You can see these little chips here. That's from the factory. That's been filled from the factory and was colored. So we'll have to address these and get these refilled and colored to match. But it's not unusual. The factory's not going to reject a piece of furniture if they can fix it and meet their QC standards. So when all the finish is removed, this is how this was put together. We'll get it fixed. And we've given the Timbermate maybe a half hour or so to dry. I've got some 150 on a block. I'm very gently going to sand this back. And it sands off very easily. And that's what we're left with, is nice, smooth, filled in chips. And now all we have to do is color them. I like to use my hand when I'm sanding around moldy edges like this, because I can really just kind of form my hand to the shape of the wood. And what we're doing now is sanding away the filler that we put in here where there was chips from the factory in the veneer. And you can see how nicely that filled in for us. Okay, we've got everything sanded down. All of our fill repairs came out great. I'll show you the top of the coffee table here in just a second. Good morning's work. I got about probably 45 minutes of cleaning up in the shop to do to get the dust out of here. I'll take care of that, and then we will get on to sealing these pieces, starting to tackle some of the color issues that we have probably first thing tomorrow. But let me bring you in and show you how this came out. The legs came out. When we first started working on this, I had this box taped up. I decided to untape it and to refinish it, so that's been stripped and sanded. The legs look good. Let's come up here onto the tabletop. Our fills, this was the long crack that we had, remember? That filled out nicely. We still have these two spots that are going to take some ingenuity to conceal. But the rest of it looks really good. A lot of work, but it looks good. Here we have the one table ready to go, and the repairs to the puppy chews have been taken care of. And same thing there. Alright, I'm going to clean up the shop and I will see you all in the morning. Good morning and welcome back. We're ready to start applying finish to this project. I was up early this morning editing video and we're already over a half an hour with just the finish removal and the repairs. So what I'm going to have to do is call this right here as part 1. We'll continue this project in part 2, which I'll start to shoot today, and I'll upload them either together or in very close time, because I know a lot of you get real frustrated when you watch a part 1 and then the part 2 doesn't show up for a week or 2. So I'll take care of that for you. But anyways, that's it for part 1. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope maybe you picked up some tips. So from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching. Take good care, and remember, it's just wood color and some shiny stuff, and stand by for part 2. It'll be coming right along. Bye.